Glad you all could make it. Let's see who's here. My mom was a songwriter in the 30s and 40s. Now I have to say that because she threatened to come up here and shoot me if I didn't, since tomorrow is Mother's Day. If you knew my mom, you'd understand that growing up with her, being a songwriter, she stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning and she did all those cool things. I thought it was a great way to live, so I spent the rest of my life living that way. She says it's all her fault. She wouldn't put it quite like that, but that was the general idea. I played with my first band when I was 12 years old. I got this gig with a band. And Mom was very upset about this, and she said, I'm not sure I want you playing in bars, but I went anyway. That night I came home, I had dollar bills coming out of everywhere. I think I made $18 that night, poured it all out and put it on the table, and she said, you can keep the gig. Right, so that was the beginning of the whole thing. Basically, playing with bands, I started out when I was about 12, worked until I was 17. Then I decided I need more training, so I go to college. This was after 2 nervous breakdowns, and my mom said to me, well, what do you want to do now? And I didn't say go to Disneyland. I said, I think I'll go to college. It's the same difference. But anyway, I had to audition to get into the college, so I wasn't a good sight reader because I'd always learned everything. My teachers had always taught me to play, and they would play something for me, and I would go home and play it. And I never had to learn to read, so I didn't learn to read the music too well, so I said, well, I got to do this audition. The only thing I know is Fleur Elise. And I thought, no, that's not going to work. So I wrote a piece. I was reading at the time, I was reading this piece on King Arthur, reading Le Morte d'Arthur, and I thought it was a great idea. So I wrote this piece called King Arthur. When I got to New York back in the 60s, it was a really exciting time. Some of you remember and some of you weren't born yet. Every 3 different stores you'd go by in the village, McDougal and Bleecker and West 4th, would be what was called a basket house. That was where musicians came in. Nobody got paid. The waitresses didn't get paid. They had to work for tips. The musicians worked for tips. And changed a bit in 30, 40 years. So everybody would get up and do their set, pass the basket, and that's how you got paid. And if you worked 3 days a week, in those days you could work in all the basket houses. You could make about $200 in a weekend, which wasn't bad. Anyway, there was this one particular coffee house called the Four Winds on West 3rd Street. A man named Eddie Simons ran it. And Bobby Dylan had just gotten to town, and he came in one night with his guitar and got on stage, and he sang about half of one song, and Eddie came storming out of the kitchen and said, off my stage, you can't sing, get out of here, I don't want to know from you. And Eddie would let anybody sing. I mean, he didn't throw anybody out. Dylan was the only person he threw out. So Dylan went off, and about 6 months later, his first album came out on Columbia. 2 days later, Dylan's back with a bigger guitar, brand new Martin guitar, climbs up on stage, starts to sing. Eddie comes running out of the kitchen, throws him off the stage. A year later, the second album comes out. He shows up with a limousine, a bigger guitar, and an entourage, climbs up on the stage, Eddie throws him off. This happened for 4 years. The upshot of it is Dylan never played the Four Winds. Okay? So if Bobby is ever playing anywhere and you want to really bug him, go up and just say Four Winds to him, real quiet. He'll freak out. We used to do, and it doesn't happen anymore, we used to play the sun up on a Saturday morning. We would go and do our jobs on the weekend, and then everybody would go to one place, like, at that point, the Fiend John was on 7th Avenue, there's a little hole in the wall, and all the musicians would show up at the Fiend John, word got passed in the village, and everybody would show up, and we just jammed till the sun came up. And it was in one of those jams, this guy comes in one night with a guitar that was put together with baling wire and tape and whatever, puts it in open tuning and starts playing. It was Richie Havens. The minute he opened his mouth, everyone went, oh shit, he is good, right? So, but people don't do this anymore. I think we should do this more often. We should like have these things where we get together and play music and, you know, bring the sun up on a given day. This is a nice audience. You can see this. I played for audiences that weren't so nice. I've also played some very strange gigs in my day. I think probably the strangest one was a laundromat. And the problem with that wasn't that it was the laundromat so much. I mean, it was like we had singers and Jerry Sheldon from the Triple was there and a whole bunch of people was there. But the guy that ran the laundromat told us that we couldn't run the amplifiers if the ninth dial went on because we'd blow all the power. So we dealt with that. Then there was this gig in LaGrange, Georgia, where it took 9 ambulances to carry away the wounded. They had opened under new management, and it was very strange management indeed, because they had quite a to-do, and we're handing all the instruments out the back window. We just played the first number when this broke out. And so we get everything out in the parking lot, and I say to the drummer, Junior, have you got everything? And he goes, yeah, he counts all of his drums, and then he goes, wait a minute, where's my wife? So we go back inside, and we're looking for his wife, and we see this drape over on one side, so they're going like this. We go over, and there she is. Then, anybody see the Blues Brothers? Yes. I played clubs like that. They put the chicken wire up to keep their beer bottles from hitting you. Actually, since I've been in New York, it's been very calm. Playing down south with country western bands can be very, very strange. We played every Saturday in Roanoke, Alabama. We would go up and do this thing for like 2,000 screaming kids. And that was a big deal in those days. It was like Rap Today, and had like an 8-piece country western band. And every Saturday we'd go with Walter, the bass player, and he'd take this plywood bass and put it on top of his 49 Packard. No case on the bass. It would rain. We would get to the gig. He would take the bass off, pour the water out of it, go in and clean it up before the gig. Every Saturday it rained. Then I was playing with a society band, and we were going to the Army and Air Force bases with Georgia and Florida, and every time we went to Florida there was a hurricane, and we'd be driving down the road and Larry'd go, oh shit, the sky's turning green. You know. And I'm going, well Larry, I mean every time you book us in Florida this happens, and he goes, yeah, we always get blown away. So we had this crazy bass player. Bass players have been the bane of my existence. But we had this crazy bass player who was like a real maniac, psycho killer. And we were booked in Lakeland, Florida at the air base there, and we lost him. We couldn't find him. And there was a WAC barracks there, and so what we found out had happened was he had gotten in the WAC barracks and put a lampshade on his head and stood in the corner and tried to be a lamp in the WAC barracks, and they busted him for this. I spent a lot of time on the Lower East Side and the storefront on 5th Street. Some of you remember it. Finally couldn't go in there anymore. There was so much stuff in there, couldn't get in. They threw us out. They said, gee, you're living in the storefront. You're not supposed to. We were there for 5 years. They didn't know we were living in the storefront, you know. But anyway, so they threw us out. But while all this was going on, CBGB's was happening. Patti Smith was doing her first show at CBGB's. And television was the opening band for CBGB's when Patti was there. And there was a place called Nightbirds on 5th Street and 2nd Avenue. And I saw the sign and said, that's a great hook for a song. And the next song was written basically using that hook. It took about a year and a half, one of those long ones, not like some of these 30-minute things. And basically, the idea of the song was, there was a place called the Bonsoir years ago where Barbra Streisand used to sing, and various people, I think Tony Bennett sang there, as somebody said, and they turned it into a Puerto Rican dance palace. You know, in New York is like storefronts. They bought and sold every day, and like they changed the sign, and what was once a place is no longer a place. Well, anyway, I used to go down there, and like, little Puerto Rican girls who were glad to meet you, all dancing together, and it wasn't like They cared who they were dancing with. They were just dancing to dance.